All right, let me share my screen. We're just gonna get started without him. Fuck it. Yeah, we're not gonna show this stuff yet. My bad. This guy right here. Um, so last week we covered Master Tour Run a Show. All this stuff's on YouTube if you guys want it. Sessions 1 through 5 are actually on there. Welcome to the last week here. Today we're going to be covering qualities of a good tour manager. We've got a couple special guests too. Start off with some tour manager traits that we feel are beneficial to have. Then Justin's going to go over the hierarchy of touring with you guys. We'll go over managing a tour crew with Cotton, and then we got some special guests. We'll have an artist manager, an artist business manager, and also a agent. So that being said, I guess we could start, all of us on the panel, I guess. I'll kind of take the lead, but we want to start with just going over some personality traits that we feel like have been kind of clutch to have in tour managers, or what can make up a good tour manager. Typically we'll have like a label, or someone will reach out to us, and a lot of the times they actually request like certain, as weird as it is, they'll request certain traits from us. A couple of those being, and anyone feel free to chime in here too if I miss anything, but I think the most common trait that is requested by managers or labels or whoever is being chill. I think that's probably the most common thing that people reach out for us to have. But that's not necessarily means that you always have to be chill as a tour manager. There's times to also not be chill. But I just look at it like, when I used to tour manage, I basically would make sure my energy that I had, let's say something was wrong with the show or something was going on, I would always make sure whatever energy I'm showing to my artist or crew, they're going to usually match you on that. So even there's be times where the shows, I still use it in a production standpoint, where there's something really fucked up, but the artist is asking me, I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. We're going to be fine. And then we'll go behind the scenes and be flustered and figure it out. But I think calm and collected, cool, calm and collected is one thing I definitely have talked with a lot of our tour managers. And I know, Jordan, Cotton, Justin, everyone else has too, is just being, not being, you can't spaz out and freak out when you're in the middle of the show or something's happening and load in or what have you, because you're at the top of the hierarchy, which we'll go over with Justin, and your emotions tend to trickle down the stream to your crew. So it's, if you're going into battle with some sergeant or someone who's freaking out, it's not a good sign. Saw some
I
questions.
think on that note, real quick, so another thing about just the word being chill, like it means exactly what Chad's talking about, but it also means like having discretion around your artist and being like a cool like person at the same time. Like you don't want to be all up in their business. You want to know when to be around and when not to be around. You want to be there when like they want you to be there, but at the same time, you want to let them know they have their space and you're not really trying to like be all in their business. If they're in the green room, maybe they don't want you in there until they tell you to come in there. You do your own thing in the band room or in the production office. But it's important, I think, having discretion and knowing how to like act when you're around your artists, even not necessarily in a like crisis situation or in a show situation.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right. And I mean, it's on a case by case basis too, right? Like a lot of people become friends with the people that they're tour managing at some point along the way, but especially in the beginning, I think one thing we've seen a couple times is when artists get a new tour manager and the new tour manager comes in and super hot and is like, talking, asking them tons of questions and all up in their face, sitting in the green room with them. They don't really know them yet. A lot of artists definitely like it when you lay low. You're like, hey man, let me know if you need anything. I got your back. I'm gonna be in the production office. Um, just give them their own space and time. And then over time, you become friends. And then they're like, yeah, man, come kick it in the green room instead of the production office, or go to the movies, or do whatever the hell after the shows. Um, that's a good point, though, Jordan. Another thing we always get, more so from the managers and labels, are being good and organized, and pretty good at accounting. So being organized with receipts and with expenses, and we've gone over some of that stuff. But once you get out on the road, things can fall through the cracks, especially when you're getting the artist from point A to point B, while still having to keep track of your receipts and your expenses and your crew. Um, but managers, and we'll talk to business manager as well today, and getting receipts and accounting from them is that's priority number one. So it's something to keep in mind. Anyone else from the panel have anything to touch on that? Accounting, organization?
Just being timely with stuff like they need updates with, and keeping track of like all your expenses like that aren't planned for. Communicating when you need certain things to change or when you need to get something. Just communicating like that.
Yeah, I mean, getting receipts and expenses to them in a timely manner is definitely important. I mean, I've seen people that'll won't have anything, or it's all just unorganized. Like they just give them one giant thing of receipts, and they're like, oh fuck, this isn't even on Excel or anything. It's just it's definitely one way to end up not on the good side. And then they'll usually talk to the manager, be like, oh, your tour manager's giving me headaches or whatever. Definitely don't want that.
And going back to just when you're working with a label, like a lot of times they don't really understand necessarily how the road works, and so they'll give you, they give you a bunch of radio dates they want to budget like tomorrow. So you got to just be timely on top of that. And when when you give the label a number, like they really want to stick to that number, and that's like for TV shows, and that's for radio runs. So like you just want to, like when you're putting those numbers together, you want to do it quickly and efficiently, but also make sure that you're being as accurate as you can, because they're typically not going to give you any more money than what you ask for off the bat.
Yeah, that's a good point. And
yeah, it's always better to come in under than over.
Yeah, if you can, for sure. Q&A questions too today, by the way, guys. Just anything is on the table today. We're going to be going over a couple things, but being that it's the last session, if you have any questions, just throw them in there. We'll get to them. We'll also do a little Q&A after each guest. So we'll have, 3 different special guests, and when they're talking, feel free to throw questions in there, and we'll see if they want to take, a couple before they jet out of here. Trying to think of what else here with personality traits or just general traits and skills. Another thing that we've been seeing a lot of nowadays is requests to know multiple things from a tour manager. That's probably the number one thing now, is everyone wants to try and save a buck, especially when the artist is starting out. So they're going to be like, hey, do you guys have a tour manager that can also do front of house, or a tour manager who wouldn't mind setting up a lighting package, or knows how to run lights, or anything really, or even a tour manager that's a big ass dude and can do security, like kind of just whatever.
Driving, they ask you to drive.
Selling merch, driving. Yep.
Yeah,
driving on the Sprinter tours.
Yeah. Yeah, those are rough, but it's like once you get in there, and if you do that,
finish it
and beat through it, you definitely earn a lot of respect from that manager. And also, what I tell a lot of our people is, like, you gain a lot of leverage. Leverage is probably the most important thing with a tour manager. Is like, that's how you can get your rates better, and the artist becomes dependent on you in a way, and artists don't like change. So get in there, like, just work your ass off, do a couple things for them, even maybe taking photos. I know BJ is really good at that, who's in this audience. Really anything you can do to help benefit their career. don't shove it in their face, but, be like, hey, if you need help, I can do this for you or whatever, or, tell the manager. And what
Hey,
else, guys?
Chad,
Go ahead.
I have two things to piggyback off what you just said about
Yeah.
making yourself available for more than one thing, because that is happening a lot now. But my personal opinion, also don't let these people kill you, because
For sure.
they will try to put a lot of responsibility on you, and you really are one person. So to think of yourself as a driver slash TM slash merch person, which I've seen people ask for that. Just be mindful of your routing and stuff like that. I mean, the last thing you want to do is to work all day as a tour manager, part of the day as a merch person, and then you got to drive overnight to the next city. It's just not, I know they're trying to save money, but you put your safety at risk. You put your artist safety at risk. So don't let them, they think it's easy because they're not doing it. But have some limits. Don't just be chasing the bag.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Great point.
but be available. Be available for things like that. But don't let them push you, because a lot of these managers nowadays, they'll push you to your end, and they won't take into account safety concerns and things like that. The
Big
other
fact.
thing I was going to say, I don't know if somebody mentioned this already, but just overall being adaptable, being able to adapt to any situation is going to be your best trait, because a lot of things are going to happen on the fly. You have your day sheet, you have your schedule for the day, and probably the most that's going to go exactly like that is doors. Outside of that, and curfew time, that's pretty much all that's going to stay just like that. Everything can change. So being able to adjust and adapt to the moment is huge. That's a huge trait to have, because everybody ain't able. Not everybody can work on the fly.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think
I
nowadays,
think that's like when you were saying that, like I think that's what managers look for. Like when bullets are flying, live bullets are flying, like can you adapt and stay cool? Like don't freak out on everyone, and like Chad was saying, spaz out on everybody when things are changing, because it's gonna change every day. Something's gonna change every day, and everything affects something else timing wise. So just being cool under all that.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you can have your time when you gotta trip out and like, you have to go be by yourself and like have a moment. But like, it's just about how you like exactly what Chad was talking about, how you portray yourself in front of the artist. Everything's cool, it's chill, it's all good,
Mm-hmm.
and then behind closed doors, it is what it is.
yeah, and you figure out the problems. The nice thing too about what we've built with having a team is now these managers will, someone will hit us up and be like, hey, we need a merch driving tour manager front of house. We're like, that's just not, it's not safe. You guys don't want that. And we have enough, stuff going on that they tend to trust us, but it's crazy some of these requests they get. So now we tend to, on these sprinter driver tours, I think driving is the most important role, more than even a tour manager. It's like, if you can't be safe out there, the artist is, scared of crashing and shit. I remember when I used to drive, they would make me set up the lights. I was setting up the lights, taking photos, tour managing, and driving a sprinter van with a trailer. And I was trying to send my, the promoter would be hitting you up in the morning, like, hey, send me your hospitality rider. We're going to get this shopped. I'm like driving, trying to send this damn rider, hitting rumble strips. The artist is like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Get off your phone. I'm like, bro, I'm your tour manager. I got to they're going to freak out if I don't hit them up.
So is he if you don't get the stuff.
Exactly. So then he's gonna freak out. So it gets real weird. But nowadays we have a big team. We don't really fuck with that. Like the driving thing is probably the first thing we nip in the butt. Is like, it can be a homie, it can be someone who's not a professional driver, but that's their job, and maybe setting up lights or just something, to help out. But
Mr. John Foley.
yeah, a guy like Foley or whoever, gets in there, just fucking trucks it, sets up
Far
some
from a
lights,
professional
helps
driver.
out. Boom. Cool. Other things I mentioned, I wrote down. A lot of people tend to request from a city sometimes. They'll be like, hey, we're looking for an LA-based tour manager or New York-based tour manager. We try and keep those unbiased when people hit us up, because it's more about the person. And as soon as the person gets in there and they do good work, we've even lied a couple of times, be like, yeah, they're LA based, and then we'll pay for the flights, and then they'll get out on the road and they'll end up loving the tour manager, and then they're like, oh yeah, I actually live in Chicago. So the artist is like, oh well, fuck it, I'm willing to pay for that flight because I like you so much after touring with you. I'm not saying to go lie and to get a job about what city you're in, but be ready to cover the cost if you do lie. At least cover them for a while, because you're gonna have to get to that city, no expenses. They want LA people usually because we tend to rehearse out here. So having someone who can go sleep in their own bed and drive their ass to rehearsals and not cost the artist money, that is good for the managers and the artists' bottom line. That seems to be why they like it the most. Anything else? Male or female requests sometimes. That usually tends to be a female request. If it's a female artist, they'll be like, hey, we're looking, the girl wants a female tour manager, which we're all for. So can you guys think of any other requests that people give sometimes? I kind of covered a lot of it. No? Cool. That being said, I guess we could just head to hierarchy. Justin, if you want to take over, share your screen, and we'll go over some hierarchy stuff.
Yep. Let me see. No, I'm old. I got to do this.
So,
is it there?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so can you guys see the video over here?
Yeah, just hit the green on it to expand it to full screen up in the top left by the yellow, red, and green.
To the left, but yeah, there you go.
Right there. There you go.
Sorry,
Yep,
all right. I'm not that old. All right. So it says club and theater level tour, but this is going to be the base of any touring crew that you're going to take out. So it kind of just shows the tree. It starts with the artist. The artist is the top. That's the boss. That's who pays everybody. That's how I remember things, is who pays me, the artist. So from there, you have your booking agents, your manager, your business manager, and your record label. All of those are very self-explanatory, but there are notes there as far as the booking agent actually booking the shows, managers taking care of everything, business manager takes care of anything finance related. If you ever have a question on anything that has to do with money, you're going to talk to your business manager, and record label for festivals and whatever radio obligations that you may have while on tour. Under manager, you have day-to-day manager. So a lot of times with a smaller artist, you might not have a day-to-day manager that you're interacting with. You may be interacting with just a manager. Some artists that are smaller don't necessarily have the budget for a day-to-day manager, and their manager is just covering that. And if you're not familiar, a day-to-day manager is exactly what it sounds like. This is your day-to-day contact that the artist communicates with as far as rolling things out, and that person would report to the manager, or execute. I always say they execute what the manager puts in place, the deals they put in place. Under the day-to-day manager is you, the tour manager. In this scenario, I would like to say that you're probably going to be playing somewhat of a tour manager / production manager role. It'll be a very basic. I would say this is your very basic show. You don't have a lot of automation, a lot of big production things. So in scenarios like this,
would you say this is probably like a single tour bus, single box truck, trailer type?
Yes, tour? Single bus, maybe a trailer, maybe a box truck. You're definitely not taking out a like a 18-wheeler or anything like that. You're not having any real trucking for this. The big thing about tours like this, where you're playing the production manager role, but you're not necessarily a production manager, your crew that you hire is huge, because you need, for all of those people that fall under this, under backline, lighting, audio, merch, and video, you need those people to be very, very knowledgeable about their role, because they don't have a production manager to report to. I use myself as an example. I've gotten much better with production, but when I first started out, I was going out on tours like this, and they couldn't afford a production manager, but we were carrying audio or backline, whatever the case may be. So under the tour manager / production manager in this scenario, you have backline, lighting, audio, merch, and video again. And yeah, that's your crew that you're going to be taking out on the road. So realistically, in this scenario, you may have 2 backline people, a lighting person. That person is going to build every day as well as operate. In a good scenario, you'll have a front of house and a monitor person. You'll have a merch person, and then you'll have a VJ. And typically, that VJ is going to build. It's a small video wall. They're going to build that wall every day. But this is, like I said, the basic club theater level that you will see to start with, and then up from that, you get to this monstrosity, I would say, of a touring family tree, as it's named. Have all the same things. It just trickles down a little bit more. You have your artist, you have your booking agent, your manager, business manager, record label. And on this level, you're going to see your publicist a lot more. They're going to be more involved. Typically, when you get to this level, you have you'll have an independent publicist, but also the labels have a publicity department. So there's always publicity, but when you get to this level, a lot of times people don't like to rely on the label publicist because, for whatever reason. They think they're biased to the label. They think they're taking deals that will benefit the label more. So just be mindful that there could be an additional publicist, independent publicist, on top of the label publicist. Under that, again, is the day-to-day manager. And then under that could be a tour director. Tour director is basically all departments report to the tour director, in a sense. They're kind of at the top. Typically, tour directors aren't always on the road. I've seen a lot of tour managers that work from home, and they kind of play puppet master and move the pieces around. They typically will take care of a lot more accounting than the tour manager is taking care of, just because they want the tour manager to be able to focus on the road, on the tour, the things that are happening out there. Underneath the tour director, you have the tour manager and the production manager. Again, these 2 people are reporting to the tour director. If there's an issue, there's anything happening, they're going together to the tour director. A lot of times, tour directors will also have heavy production advancing that they do. A lot of times they'll advance everything, and then they'll just pass it down to the tour manager and to the production manager to actually facilitate on the road what they've advanced. And here it splits. So the tour manager on the road, your job is, it changes a lot when you have a production manager that's involved as well. So in this scenario, when you get to this level, you have your A party, your B party, your road managers, your tour manager assistants. You may have a C party. Your job is to manage all of that and their movements. That's really the biggest thing, is managing the movements. You have a road manager, a tour manager assistant, but really it's about making sure that your A party gets to where they are, where they need to be, artist, band, entourage, management. And then your B party, band, dancers, performers, anybody that falls into that. It's all about coordinating to make sure they get where they need to go. I mentioned C party. Generally, the C party is the crew. The crew is going to actually fall under the production manager. Production manager, again, I'm a tour manager. But my personal opinion is the production manager is really one of the most important people on the tour, because if you don't have a solid production manager, you don't have a show. You could potentially not have a show. Yeah, it's good to be a tour manager and have all of the pieces there and have everybody in place. But if you don't have all of these things that are across the bottom in place, it could all fall apart without having a good production manager. Under the production manager, you have your stage manager. The stage manager is there to basically run the stage. They run the stage, they run your load-ins, your load-outs, the builds. They know how much time it takes. They also are making sure that all of the local crew are on schedule, because we talked about this in a couple other sessions. You're being billed for that local crew, and if you go over your time, you're going to start paying extra money. So your stage manager is essential to make sure that you're not running over time with your build or your load in, your load out, whatever the case may be. Also under them is production coordinator and production assistant. They kind of speak for themselves. They are there to basically make sure that the production manager doesn't lose his mind. I always reference Cotton because I feel like Cotton's one of the best production managers out there. I feel like I'm big in his ego right now, but he's one of the best out there. And great. So I've seen him handle situations with and without a production coordinator, and I can see the stress on his face when there's not a production coordinator or a production assistant there. So those are very vital roles. Under the stage manager, again, you'll see all of these different things that fall under, and there's a couple in here that I'm going to not say, but backline rigging, automation, carpentry, lighting, audio, video, pyro, wardrobe, ambiance, trucks, buses. That's the main reason why I say the production manager is the most important person on the road, because they're overseeing and managing all of these different, this is your show. These are the people that make this show. I purposely left VIP and VIP manager off of there. It just depends on how your tour is set up. A lot of times people will throw that under the tour manager's responsibility just because, you know, they take care of the accounting for the VIP and the merch and things like that. So I move that over to the tour manager's responsibility, but everything here, your production manager is handling: the wardrobe, the ambiance, the backstage area, and the trucks. Truck drivers are, God forgive me for saying this, a lot of truck drivers are horrible people and they're difficult to deal with. Also, a lot of bus drivers are horrible people. They're horrible to deal with. They're difficult to deal with. However, your production manager makes sure that they have parking spaces. You know, he's advancing that parking for the trucks, that offsite parking for the buses that they don't have space for that. So the production manager is really huge in this scenario. So these are all of the departments. There may be a couple missing depending on how you split them up or how you move them around, but this is the basics of a family tree.
Yep. And to butt in, that's why when you get a good bus driver or a good truck driver, you tend to stick with them. And it's like a lifelong, you know, thing. Like that's the first person you hit up when you get the routing. Awesome. I think that covers it. Maybe we can cover a couple of these questions real quick about tour crews to just catch up, and then we'll dive into managing a tour crew. This will go back to some of the trade stuff too, just so we can catch up to ourselves. Douglas, I saw you had a question. If you want to stop sharing your screen too, Justin, there you go. Douglas, feel free to unmute yourself. I saw you had a high stress situation question. Looks like he's still muted. But basically he said, work well in high stress situations. Way another saying that's another.
Oh,
way.
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you guys kind of went over what everything I was saying and kind of addressed it. I was just kind of interpreting the way you were saying, Chill, that it's like, it doesn't mean like necessarily like hang out like you were saying, you know, it just means that you're able to like kind of be laid back when things maybe go awry and stuff, which is like another way that I was kind of interpreting initially what you were saying. It's kind of a weird way to describe the word chill. You know, obviously you want to be laid back, but obviously you're doing a job, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Chill is typically how they meaning the manager or the label, they're like, hey, we need a chill tour manager. And that is how we interpret that, I guess, is being calm under pressure,
Right.
still working your ass off, obviously.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Let's go to Nolan had a comment on receipts about scanning them. That's a really good point. There's actually apps and stuff, just scanning apps. You don't actually have to take them to like a scanner. You can just take a picture of them on some of these apps. Douglas, saw you had another question on LA rehearsals and flying yourself out. If you want to ask that.
Yeah, you kind of answered it, just saying like you can kind of lie and pay for it yourself or whatever. But couldn't you also just like be honest and just be like, yeah, I'm not in LA, but I'll pay to come for rehearsals. You know, like obviously if you need to be there for rehearsals, like it sucks that it's your expense, but if the tour is worth it, you know, like can't you just be honest and say like I'll come to LA? Or people really they care that much that you're not living there that you have to lie? Is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a weird scenario because sometimes they literally are like, even if you say I don't live there, but I'm willing to pay, they're just like, oh well, we want someone who lives here, like, and they'll just
Really?
move on because you don't necessarily know each other yet, right? It's just a resume thing. But once you get that job and you prove to them they like you, they like your personality, they like your work ethic. Afterwards, you tell them, oh yeah, I don't actually live in LA, or maybe because I recently moved back home. Like people tend to then you have the leverage because you've already worked with them and the artist loves you. It's a really weird tour manager has so much of leverage and shit that it feels.
A lot of it has
I'm
to do
gonna
with.
jump in on that too. Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
No, you go ahead, Manny.
Oh yeah, I'm in the same situation where like the artist I was looking for is looking for a New York based TM, just because there's a lot of last minute stuff, radio promo that they were doing around the area, that they want someone that can handle the last minute stuff and can jump on with them.
Yeah. Manny's New York based. Justin, you're in Arizona right now, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever tell people that you're LA because you're so close?
So I generally just tell people that I'm LA based because I know that all throughout the day I can literally just hop a flight to LA. And I was gonna say also, I've had, one of my female clients, she doesn't like flying by herself. So I literally have to fly from Phoenix to LA, catch a flight with her, go to do the show, fly back to LA with her, get her to her car, and then hop a flight back home to Phoenix. And I was upfront with her. I was, we'd already had a bunch of conversations. And I was like, just so you know, because it hadn't been discussed, I live in Phoenix. As a matter of fact, it came up when she said that she wanted me to fly with her all the time. I was like, well, just so you know, I live in Phoenix, but, if we're going to do a show, if we have a 5 a.m. flight, I'm flying in the night before, but you don't have to worry about anything. You meet me at the airport at 4 o'clock, we walking through security together. So it's kind of just reassuring people like, you don't have anything to worry about. And if I have to drop what I'm doing, because that's the biggest thing with tour management, you have to be ready to drop what you're doing and get to your artist. So as long as you're able to drop what you're doing and go, you should be good. It's a little easier for me because it's only an hour flight, but it's worked out.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we still got.
So just since it's kind of open, just to kind of give you just an explanation of like where I'm at, why I'm kind of asking about this location situation. I'm currently New York based, but I'm considering maybe moving in the next year or two to nicer weather, possibly South Florida or LA, maybe even Vegas potentially. But like, I'm just curious how much it influences my career, because I have like a bunch of family in South Florida, so I'm semi-leaning there. But if it makes so much of a difference, then like LA is an option I'm considering, So it's just like something that's really on my mind.
It's situational. Like,
Manny is a good example. He's been in New York and he stayed really busy. It really just takes one artist to get on with. Like,
Mhm.
if you get one artist to get on with that loves you, they don't care where you live.
Right.
But if you're looking to keep churning out work and jump with a bunch of different artists, it's probably good to be in LA, or if you want to be in nicer weather, probably LA, then maybe Miami if you're trying to do more club type shit, I guess.
Because
Maybe.
also I was thinking I could stay in New York as well, being a major market. Like you said, Manny's in New York, you know,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to get to nicer weather kind of.
Yeah.
It has
absolutely.
it has a lot to do with just accessibility, like Manny touched on. Like they just want to be able to be like, oh, we want to have a meeting, like come through, we want to have lunch, we
Right.
talk about this budget or whatever. And everyone, like a lot of these people, almost all of them are based out in LA, and that's why they want people to be in LA pretty much. So
Well-
that it's not about like rehearsal, it's just about like on the drop of a dime, they want to be able to have you pop over.
Just the
whatever.
thought I had as you're literally talking is, do you think there may be the possibility of a little bit of a shift in mindset after the shutdown in Corona, that people may be more open to Zoom meetings like this and be less concerned about in-person things than they were before?
That's a good point. I think temporarily, and then a couple years go by, and I feel like people will
Right, it'll
back
get
to
back
that
to normal,
intimate,
hopefully.
like
Yeah.
come through the office type shit. But I don't know. It's a good location stuff is always going to be a question, but I feel like
Well, I know you guys are open to it, like you explained. It's not going to make a difference for like with you guys, and like ultimately, it's every artist is different, and you know it is what it is. But thanks for all the feedback.
Yeah, I think to answer that though, we're all waiting to see how the world's gonna be when we start touring again after Corona. So
yeah,
exactly.
A lot of unanswered questions there. Cool. Let's keep it rolling. Edel, I saw you had a question on gender stuff. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, not really in specific question, but yeah, because I wasn't sure, like, would they usually want that male artist for, like, a male to a manager for a male artist and female, or does it not really matter usually?
situational.
Yeah.
I guess it's preference, right? From the artist perspective, like I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but like, would you say some females tend to request a female tour manager, depending on the type of female? Males are kind of unbiased, I feel like, whether it's a guy or girl. I guess it just depends, right?
I think it depends. I've had female artists, that are very pro women empowerment, and I want an all-female crew, which is great. And then I've had some that were like that, and were like, I'd like to have a guy out here. It really just comes down to the artist. But like you said, generally the men always want men, and a lot of times the women that do want specifically a female tour manager are artists that don't have assistants, or they don't take out an assistant, and so they know that tour manager can fill some of those holes, as opposed to a guy, having to ask a guy to come in and strap up your bra or something like that while you're getting ready to perform. So a lot of times that's why they ask for female tour managers. It's just a comfortability thing.
Yep. Cool. Thanks for that. I actually saw you had another question on tour directors, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, I keep muting myself back, but yeah, I was just wondering, is that like part of, would you guys do that kind of thing, or was that like by the label or an agency? Would that, yeah, I wasn't sure who that person is, yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing it. I think that's just something that we kind of do. We all, especially the bigger tours, we tend to all work, there's a few of us that work together on it. And especially when we get more of, like you guys involved that kind of come in, guys like Justin and Manny and Jordan and Cotton, we'll all help out with kind of whatever's needed and just make sure it's smooth. Keep funneling the information, because it's pretty crazy on the road, especially in when you have a large crew like that. There's a lot of moving pieces, so sometimes it's good to have someone else who can take care of a couple things while you make sure everything's kind of moving around on the ground. Things don't fall through the cracks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Mel Adams, feel free to unmute yourself. I saw you had a merch question. I can't tell if she's unmuted or not, but she said, feel free to take this. Oh, go ahead. I just heard something.
On the arena tour hierarchy tree,
Picture.
where does merch fit in on that?
On arena tour hierarchy tree.
Yeah, what?
Justin, feel free to take
It
it.
wasn't on there, so.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
You said me?
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, not even just on the arena level, but pretty much all levels. It really just depends on how that artist has their merch set up. A lot of times it's handled through the label, and so we don't do anything merch related. The label hires someone, we just give them a bunk space, and they report directly to whoever their person is to report to at the label. We just, generally just depends. We may advance a space for them to sell merch, or they may advance it on their own. It really just depends. I know like on like Juice, for example, Juice's management took care of all of the merch in-house. So every day the merch seller would give us reports of what was sold. But then still he would, make deposits on his own. Again, it just depends on how hands-on you are. I've had merch sellers give me all of the cash at the end of the night, all of the reporting, and I report that directly to the business manager. It really just depends. If you're asking as far as tour manager, production manager, or anything like that, I would say it falls under the tour manager, just because it has to do a lot with finances. And that tour manager would then report it on to the business manager. But it just really depends on the camp and how they want that to be done.
Yep.
Cool picture, by the way.
Yeah, very cool. Love it. Tobin had a good question on Nashville. That's one market we didn't really talk about. Nashville, a lot of rehearsals have been happening out of it because a lot of the buses come out of Nashville and Atlanta. Some come out of the West Coast now too, but it seems like that's another market option for a lot of freelancers and people to come out of. Kale Conrad, feel free to unmute yourself. So you had a question. We'll take your question and then we're going to dive into the special guests. And then we'll go with Cotton for the how to manage a tour crew. He's got a whole thing ready. Kale, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that I just meant that, from day to day, you'll get different promoters, whether it's, AEG or Live Nation. And sometimes when you show up, there are things that are definitely not as were talked about. And I think that sometimes it can be, you get some tension where you're having to keep your cool and so like the artist doesn't think like, what is the show going to go to crap? And also you have to work with these people for the rest of the day. And so I was just wondering, I've got my own, tools or tactics that I would use, but I'm curious what you guys have done in the past or how to diffuse that a little bit, or if you guys just kind of rolled. I mean, I would just roll with the punches, but also try to make a statement that's just like, hey, this is what we talked about. I want you to know that this is what was, contract or whatever. But I was curious what you guys do.
Yeah. Anyone want to take that one?
I think it comes down to situation for sure. I mean, depending on what they've done and how bad it is it fixable? Is it not fixable? Sometimes when things happen that are like irreversible that you can't fix, there's no point in dwelling on them. You want to make it known that that was an issue and that it shouldn't have happened. But you got to move past it and find a way to work with it, because at the end of the day, that's not going to change. Things that can be fixed, things that are different, and say you show up and the rider is wrong after it had been advanced. Something your artist has to have isn't there. I mean, that's a conversation you can have and you can remedy the situation. I've had a situation where we were in South Korea and we showed up to the hotel and we checked in, and then after we checked in, the promoter comes up to me and tells me, oh, hey, by the way, small thing, we don't have the rooms for you guys tomorrow, so there's no place. They were sold out. There's nothing we can do about it. And my artist didn't go on stage at this festival until like 6 p.m. and he was headlining it. So we were like, that's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that's gonna happen. Like, you need to fix the situation. He needs to be in a room. And you kind of just, you know, put your foot down and demand those things, and that did get remedied, and we did stay in the hotel. So I mean, it's definitely about deciding what the situation is and how important it is to you and your artist and the show.
Yes, sir.
And with promoters too, like if it's something that is dealing with money, get your booking agent involved ASAP. You don't want to be on the hook for that kind of stuff.
Great point. And sometimes it's not our responsibility as tour managers, like we went over in the past, to argue about advertising costs or, you know, whatever. Our job might just be to just catch him and then pass it on to the right, you know, authority there.
Again, it goes to the hierarchy too. Like when there's a problem, it can go back up if you need it. Like someone higher up can handle the problem for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. We could probably go to, let's just start rocking out these special guests. So Jordan, feel free. We're going to start off with a friend of ours, Jared Cotter. He's a manager for Bozzy, Kiana Lede, and a couple other artists. Jordan, if you want to, is he in here already with us?
No, I'll let him in right now. You want to let him in?
Yeah, let him in. So
All
we'll let him introduce himself, and then if any of you guys have questions pertaining to artist managers, feel free to ask those while he's talking. We'll have him answer a couple questions, and that'll really be it. But I think Jared's in here now. So what's up, Jared?
What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Oh,
Good,
I see
man.
my favorite people here.
Yeah, you got
that
a
beard
few
is
of them.
crazy.
Yeah, look at you.
Oh
Got
my
the plaque in the
God.
background.
I like the blonde, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't seen Jared in a while. We've been in quarantine, so everyone's changing and evolving or devolving.
Yeah. What's up, everybody?
Cool. Yeah, just had a few questions for you. We got some people in here who are a little interested. If you want to just introduce yourself and give us a breakdown of kind of what you do, a couple of the artists you work with, and we'll ask you a couple questions.
Sure. I started out as a creative. I was a songwriter for many years, and went over to the management and music executive side probably about 7 years ago. I started as a consultant with Mike Karen at Atlantic Records, and then I started to just venture out into other things. My partner Jeremy Scholar hit me up, was like, "Hey, I have this girl Kiana Lede. I think she's really talented, but I need some help." So started helping on Kiana Lede, co-managing her, and then I found Bozzy, and you know, that was like a meteoric rise, and is still going, and very, very excited and happy for his career. We've done pretty well so far, 3 billion streams and counting. Yeah, that's the quick version of who I am, what I do. But
Jared's got some pipes too.
Say again?
You got some pipes too. He's had a whole. He's been on some other records. He's done a lot of stuff with like Jay Sean and on
in a former life.
And he's got a pretty badass wife too.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate that.
I guess this is all tour managers in here and people who want to get into the tour management world. So we were just wanting to ask you, what are some qualities in hiring a tour manager, or things that you guys look for at the Heavy Group that you think would be good for some of these guys to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most important things for me as a manager, and what I look forward to working with people who are like this, or people who are just crazy into attention to detail. I think it's really important to know the little things, so that an artist doesn't get frustrated, and in turn, when the artist is really frustrated, then the management team is really frustrated. It saves everybody a lot of time, a lot of grief, and sometimes money. Quite frankly, you know, when you know, me as a manager, I'm not worried about the little things while my artist is on tour. Jordan is amazing at that.
Yeah, just so everybody knows. So Jared manages, Bozzy is one of the artists he manages. Jordan Levine, who's in here, is actually Bozzy's tour manager. So
yeah.
Jordan and Jared talk quite a bit, for sure.
Yeah, quite a bit. And, you know, but that's the thing. It's like, for me, I need a person who, and this is across all my artists, like, I just need a person who, one, I like, and two, gets the job done. And that attention to detail is something that's really important. And, you know, I think also what's really important is really getting to know the artist more so than anything else, you know, knowing and kind of almost like, oh, he's going to ask me for this. She's going to totally need this on stage. I better have it there, because if it's not, they're going to bitch about it anyway. I might as well, you know, cut that off quick. And it's, again, it saves everybody a lot of grief. Those are the two big things for me.
Love that. Cool. If anyone had any manager questions, feel free to send them over. And then last question I guess we had was, do you guys, this is a little bit different, but do you guys approach releases and rollouts differently right now as we're in quarantine? And, you know, how do you look at it differently right now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something that, like, Jeremy and I, we really had a few conversations on, like, just as we were going into quarantine. We were actually in Miami at Kevin's bachelor party. And during quarantine, we were like, you know what? We have a captive audience now. You know, people are in their homes dying for entertainment, like, you know, and wanting to stream stuff. So we changed nothing as far as a release schedule during quarantine. Kiana came out, I think, was it April 3rd. And you know, that was smack in the middle of it. And I think we did better because of it, you know. The climate is certainly different now with the uprisings. So I wouldn't release music now in this version, in this part of the quarantine. I think it'd be really insensitive. But yeah, as far as the quarantine early before this, I was like, hey, we got a captive audience, let's go. What sucks is we can't plan like full tours, obviously, and we can't tour off these projects. So that's been the biggest, you know, gut punch to see, like, how do we bring in income for our artists during this time?
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. Do you like an artist who releases an album right now, and maybe we're not able to tour it till next year? Do you think they have to have another project out before that tour and renaming the tour and stuff? Or
I think it'd be really smart to have a project ready. For when everything is somewhat back to normal. I think it'd be really smart for artists to have a project, or at least like an EP, a dope ass single, something to put into the marketplace to remind people about who they are, one, but to also trip the algorithm so people go back to the Spotify or Apple Music page and we'll go back to that album that you released during quarantine. I think that's going to happen with Kiana, being that April 3rd was, again, in the middle of it. So I think people will go back and discover her again. At least that's what we're betting on.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Cool, man. Anyone on the panel want to say anything or have any questions? I think we're good. Awesome. Well, appreciate you, Jared. Appreciate your time.
Of course.
And we will see you soon. Keep growing that beard, man.
Thanks, Jared.
May the real Slim Shadys please stand up.
Yeah.
Sorry if nobody. Bad joke. I'm a dad. Have a good one.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.
Cool. Who do we got next, Jordan?
Mr. Sean Blee.
Sean
Blee's
Blee.
already in here.
Awesome.
I gotta find them. I'll spotlight them.
Yeah, cool. So that
What's
was
up, guys?
artist manager Jared. What's up, Sean? So Sean is a business manager. Sean, feel free to introduce yourself, kind of say what you do, maybe a couple of artists that you help oversee.
Sounds good. Yeah, kind of what Justin was saying before, business manager, we handle everything financial, everything money related comes to us. So in contact with tour managers pretty often, especially, when they're on tour pretty much every day. So some of the artists that we have that on my desk, I have a lot of people that aren't in music, but as far as touring artists, I have Bozzy, work with Jordan on Bozzy, also work with Jacob Banks. He's out of the UK. Keanu Lede as well with the Heavy Group. Work with the Lost Kings, Quinn 92, Skylar Gray, the Aces, and the Time Flies guys. Those are the bulk of my touring artists. And I mean, as you guys know, touring is crazy, and so every day we're on the phone with tour managers and getting credit cards working again, and hotel reservations that didn't get paid for or something like that. That's kind of a fire drill, and you guys call us. But as far as what we do, we looking for good qualities in a tour manager. We kind of look for somebody that is organized, and communication really helps. The more we know, the more we can help, because we literally have to go through every single credit card charge. A lot of times we're billing back things to the label. So it's kind of the tour manager, job to help stay organized and all that, give us all the receipts, give us all the backup if we need it, that type of thing. They kind of are the keeper of everything that's going on. So we really get all the info. I don't know what other questions you guys have. So let me look at this.
I think we how do you like to get your information delivered to you? Like, do you guys still use physical receipts? Do you guys have people scan things?
Sure.
Email, text? Like, how do you communicate with tour managers usually?
I think everybody's a little different. There are a lot of people that would like to go through each individual receipt, and so they like paper receipt in their hands. I'm perfectly fine with a digital receipt. What a lot of my managers do is while they're on tour, they separate each receipt out into like a folder for each specific show, and then they send like a zip file with all the different receipts they've used over the tour. And I'm totally fine with that, as long as you're organized on it, and it helps a lot. And then the other thing is like credit cards. So most tour managers have a credit card under the artist's business, and for that, we go through every single charge, and so we'll ask questions, what was this for? Why did you spend money here? And why did you have to get this? And because again, a lot of times we're billing back to the label, or the label's funding the tour, so we have to make up the loss at the end of the tour. And so we have to have answers for pretty much everything, and the tour managers who gives us all that info. So I'm perfectly fine with digital receipts. I think Chad was saying earlier, there's apps you can just take a picture and then be done with it. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. And that's one thing we haven't really covered is credit cards. So once you guys get in with an artist and you tend to become their tour manager, a lot of times they're going to get you set up with a credit card in your name, so you don't have to constantly do the old, hey, let me get your card, whatever.
Right.
That a lot of people do with artists when you start off. That's a really good point.
What a lot of tour managers do is, they get an Excel sheet, and throughout the tour, they start just putting down what each charge was. Every night before you go to bed, maybe just like, if you have 15 charges, go through, say what they were. And then, it just makes your life a whole lot easier rather than trying to scramble at the end of the tour, trying to put everything together.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone have questions for business management related things, or anyone on the panel?
Yeah. Hey, Sean, what do you generally when I start with a new artist, I have my accounting system that I use that works for me. And this kind of goes back to our conversation earlier in the session about being adaptable. Do you generally like for tour managers to use your system as far as accounting, reporting, ledgers and things like that, payroll even, or are you generally able to kind of adapt as long as what they're using, makes sense, you can adapt to what they're using?
Yeah, I think like you said, as long as it makes sense to you and it's organized, I think it's perfectly fine. For me, as long as if it's in Excel, I can pretty much, change it to what I need it to look like, and as long as your information makes sense, I can, drag and drop things from Excel into my program, and it works perfectly. So I'm usually pretty good with that. Where it starts to change is sometimes the artist will request, certain information. And so then you got to start going back and forth a little bit more. So usually what I do is I just download a statement into Excel and have like a tour manager or assistant, whoever has a card, and they'll fill out, what their charge was for and why they, what they were doing that day and what it was for. And I mean, it really just holds everybody who has a card accountable. And if you do have an artist card, you kind of should be accountable. You shouldn't, people, and I've never really seen it, but I'm sure people do take advantage. But yeah, as long as it's organized and, I'm pretty open to anybody's way of doing it.
Cool. I guess I had another question. So what do you tend to do when, let's say an artist is out internationally and their credit cards stop working? Like, what's the process from like on your guys' end?
Yeah, it's hard. So
quickly, I guess. Did we lose Sean for you guys too?
Yeah, I think
He's like pause. Yeah.
Damn, that's rough.
That's
that's the perfect
overloaded
moment.
The system.
that's the perfect moment for a business manager to drop out when the card stops working. I'm out of here. Typical.
Yeah. Awesome. Jordan, let us know if we get him back.
We're getting back.
He's stuck on that frame.
He's very much so for us. Wow.
That's
well, if anybody else wants to touch on what you do when the credit card goes down overseas,
I guess as a tour manager, you guys have any stories of that happening?
you use your own credit card and get reimbursed. You send those receipts.
Yeah.
Get those
Unfortunately,
points.
that's the one. That's the one I got hit with.
Yeah, get a high limit on your credit card. You get those points, and then you get reimbursed for them. Best thing ever.
Listen,
Beautiful
man,
thing.
I had to put a jet on my credit card one day.
That's the best thing that could happen to you.
Bruh, the best thing that can, because I know they're gonna reimburse me.
Yeah,
like, I know we're good.
Yeah.
Oh
Sure, I'll use my Amex.
When that happens too,
I was so close to having to do that once, so I wanted to so bad.
That's funny.
when that happens too, I promise you never email them so fast.
Yeah.
I think I put like $800 in flights on my car one day. I was like, immediately, I need these.
Right when I'm sitting on the plane, I'm on top of it. I'm just typing away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cotton one time had a receipt, and Cotton he in charge of the hotel, and we were driving to the venue, and Cotton sent the receipt while he was driving the crew from point A to point B in those 10 minutes.
Quick. Yeah. Yeah, he's on it.
But I will say though that that's the perfect example of just being prepared. Everybody's not able to have an Amex card, but just having some kind of solution available, because it happens way too often that artist cards go down. If you think about it, you're on tour, they might be charging, some people don't like to send wires, but everything might be going to that tour credit card, hotels, flights, bus payments.
Adds up quick.
It adds up quick. And, business managers are available all the time, but if they happen to be, it happens to happen on a Saturday or a Sunday or something like that, and they're doing family time or something like that, the tour doesn't stop. You got to be prepared to, sometimes you got to whip out that credit card. It's unfortunate. And then, that's a situation where I use it as leverage later. like remember that time I had, I've had to be there for you, so make sure you're taking care of me.
Manny, you remember
touch on what Justin's talking about too, like the artist is looking at you and so is everybody looking at you. Like if the tour is going on, so you got to keep things moving.
Yeah, we got Sean back here.
Oh, cool. Sean,
how convenient that you dropped out as soon as we started talking about cards going down, Sean.
I know, right? I know, guys. I'm so sorry about that. My phone overheated.
Oh, for sure. Happens all the time.
Yeah, cards not working. Gosh, it's one of our biggest emergencies always. And especially it's really frustrating for a tour manager, artists, when you're stuck in another country and your cards don't work. Call me or call the business manager. They're the ones that can deal with it. They'll call, hopefully, they'll wake up and you can get a hold of them. Usually what we try to do is a lot of places, most of our clients have Amex, but we try to set people up so they have a visa as well, because Amex isn't really used in other countries a lot. So we try to have a backup plan, whether it's a debit card, a credit, another credit card to use. We try to do that. Tour managers often have cash. So hopefully, they'll be able to pull out cash prior to, to the cards not working, and be able to get out of the situation. But definitely call the business manager, and they're going to be the ones to help you with that.
Cool. Someone had a question in the chat of what is the day-to-day work of the business manager for an artist? So like, what is your everyday situation look like?
Sure. Yeah, we're mostly accounting based. So we literally go through every single credit card charge and we code it, whether it's personal expense, business expense. Most of our clients, we handled all their personal accounting as well. So we're literally just going through every single charge. We file their taxes for them. That's pretty much our day to day. But we also help, if a client is doing, negotiations or things like that, we're kind of another trusted advisor kind of to help them through some of that process. We help them, handle things for the lawyers. We're kind of all over the place as far as if the client needs it, we can help them with it.
So would you say you guys do some advisory things as well? So financial advisory in a sense?
Yes. So definitely in a sense, it depends on the client. Some clients want to have somebody else handle it, which is totally fine. And some clients want to not think about it and have us do it. So it's situational. Everybody's different. But yeah, we definitely do that.
Cool. Myra, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your second question if you want.
Yeah, awesome. I was just curious at what point you have a couple different artists that you're working with at different stages at their careers. Just kind of when you guys usually get brought in, like how big an artist generally is.
There's not really a set, determination. Usually it's if a client is starting to, need a business and things like that, they come to us. We're percentage based. So once a client starts making money, we don't make any money. Or if a client's not making money, we don't make any money. But we have clients that are just getting started, and we have clients that come to us after 5 years of being in the business. So it's totally situational. Some people just need the extra help, and that's kind of what we're here for. But there's not really like a fine line. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Malachi, feel free to unmute yourself. This is probably the last question for Sean.
Yeah, no worries.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, how you doing? So my question was, does an agency like Caps help to take the load off the TM or business manager's plate? And does it affect the bottom line of the artist?
Yes, so they definitely help. We use, I've used Team and I've used Caps. Some people use Paychecks, but Team and Caps are usually the best. As far as touring goes, is because they can allocate each state taxes. And it definitely helps tour manager and business manager. And it's just one less thing that we all have to think about. But there's some artists that are just getting started and they don't use a payroll company because they don't want to have to pay the payroll tax yet. And it's just, a little cheaper, and they're not quite there yet. So, but once you get to a full on tour and, you should really start using a payroll company, it definitely helps.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dope. Anyone else on the panel have anything for Sean?
I think you guys said something, a question about cash, right? And how to handle it, kind of thing.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's a great thing to touch on.
Actually, this is a great question. Somebody asked before, and I think we all kind of had different answers about it. How do you recommend transferring a lot of cash internationally, like when you're traveling either from the U.S. to Europe or Europe back? Because we were saying we just split it up so no one has more than 10 grand and we just go through like that. But that seems pretty bootleg. Is there a business manager advice to that?
Honestly, no, I don't know. That's not something I've ever had to deal with. I just sit behind my desk and hopefully you guys figure it out. No, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I know a lot of tour managers wait and pull out cash there and then they try to exchange it while they're there, or before they come back. But yeah, that's probably the only way I would know how to do it. It's crazy.
Yeah,
but I mean, yeah. But as far as cash, everybody does it differently, as long as you kind of account for, because we still pick up those expenses. Some tour managers hold on to cash from one tour to the next, which is totally fine. I just, as long as you're organized and send me the backup or, the breakdown of what everything is, it's pretty straightforward.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess there's not really a necessary answer to that question. Cool.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, just got to figure it out. Nolan says sometimes labels can help with cash deposit and a merch deal. Oh, they have a London office. Oh, cool. That's a good point. I guess that is probably it for Sean. Appreciate you giving us some of your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome.
All right. Take
Later,
care.
man. Yeah, for sure. Our last guest is Sarah from WME. Sarah, can you hear us if you're in here?
Hey. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Feel free to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what you do, some artists that you work with, and whatnot.
Sure. So I'm an agent at WME. I've been there for about 5.5 years. Some of the artists I work with are Wiz Khalifa, Summer Walker, Emotional Oranges, Ravina, Umi, a bunch of acts on a lot of levels. My job is really to route tours and negotiate every day on the tour.
Cool. Do you necessarily have a lot of contact with the tour manager? And if so, what are some things that you appreciate that tour managers do, or would you recommend some traits that they can be better at?
I do have a lot of contact with tour managers very often. I think the main thing, honestly, is communication, which seems obvious, but there's so many people on an artist's team that sometimes the manager doesn't even remember to tell the agent, when changes have happened. So like if it's something as simple as the artist rider changing, or, way more important, the production rider has changed, I so appreciate when tour managers give me the heads up, even if it's the smallest thing in the world, like, oh, the rider has changed. Because at the end of the day, it helps me make your job so much easier, because I've already sent the rider to the promoter when I've confirmed the show, versus you, so they know what to expect, versus you, let's say having to advance something and the promoter has a problem with it. I've already had kind of the initial, I won't say argument, but they just won't be surprised. So I think that is super important. And, I have tour managers who send me, when artists are on tour, they'll send me like settlement sheets every single night. Or they'll just send me like updates every night. If you think it's important information I should have, even if you think like, oh, the manager's probably communicating it, I think it's important to communicate it to me, because I'm not at every show and I'm not at the ground. And if you think there's an issue with an expense or something like that, you telling me before the promoter tells me will allow me to have the full picture.
Yeah, that's a great point. We were all talking earlier a little bit too about like advertising costs. Like as a tour manager, when you run into a situation where let's say the show sold out super quickly and they had a big advertisement cost that you didn't agree with, should we just send that right to you and not really argue it, or let you take the reign on it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there are some things that you can argue, right? Like if you see that there's an extremely egregious rider cost and that the artist just got water and crackers, there are things that are very obvious that you can argue. But I think, if the show has sold out very quickly, at least for my clients, I will have usually already emailed the promoter and said, how much of our advertising budget have we used so far? and let's make sure not to spend any more because we don't need to. The show is sold out. But there sometimes you have to remember that like promoters aren't always trying to fuck people over. They're just like, they just have like interns and young people and so many people working for them that like you might see some crazy advertising cost. I would call it out, and if the situation doesn't get fixed there, then just email the agent. I wouldn't, you know,
a good point.
If it turns into like a huge argument, I would just email the agent. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, good point. I had one question, then we'll have the panel maybe ask you a couple. So with us in quarantine, how do you guys from the agency side, do you particularly see the industry changing, or like what is something that you see that's probably going to happen in the next maybe year or so when we get back to work?
I think, you know, all the tours that we've obviously rescheduled a lot of tours, you know,
You guys
many
are working
times
over there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard, right? Because we don't have a crystal ball. We have the same news as you do. We read everything that you guys do, but, you know, we have booked, we're all talking now about whether spring of 2021 is going to be real. There are differing opinions even amongst my colleagues, of some people who are a little more optimistic, who are like, we think we'll be back by spring, and then, or some people who think we'll be back this fall, and then you have more of the conservative, you know, people who think it won't be till fall of 2021. But I think the biggest change that you're going to see when you're advancing shows specifically is just that the procedures are a lot different. For new offers I'm seeing, we're seeing some promoters are ahead of it, some aren't. Some of the offers look exactly the same, but people are adding equipment to their facilities, you know, hand sanitizer machines. They're going to do 6 feet apart regulations. This is assuming there's no vaccine in place. But even if there is a vaccine in place, I think cleanliness in general is now going to be a big deal, whether or not things go back to normal. I think you're going to see that a lot, that venues have different procedures now in terms of cleanliness.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be wild. I mean, on our side, we've heard stories of not being able to use a tour bus full. So you have to get more buses, you know, like we can't fit 10, 12 anymore in a bus. And it's going to be interesting, man. I can't wait till we get to this part where we start building out the next tours.
Yeah.
Camilla, I think, had a question for you. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask her.
Great, thank you so much. Sarah, hello. Thank you so much for coming today. I was curious to know your thoughts on managing artists' expectations as far as the budget. I know sometimes artists may have, you know, a beautiful picture in their head, and I wanted to know what that conversation was like between you and the production manager or tour managers.
Right. When you say budget, do you mean in terms of what is going to be accommodated on certain riders, or?
Yeah.
So I will usually have a conversation with the manager when we are discussing, you know, what rooms to go to, where we're going to go on the tour. And I will make sure that they know that, you know, especially for smaller rooms, the catering budgets are almost nothing. And some artists are fine with that. Others, I'll have managers say, well, they need X, Y, and Z, so let's bump up the catering budget per city. But if you know, again, back to communication, because the tour manager is so, almost has to deal with the artist needs so much, and like almost knows more than the manager, honestly, on what the artist needs. So I would communicate that to the agent or the manager as well, and say, listen, the artist is expecting X, Y, and Z. I just looked on the rider. Some of these club shows only have $100 budgets. We need to ask the agent to up the budgets. And as long as the artist understands how that's going to affect their guarantee, which I always try to explain, or their walkout, excuse me, then it's fine. We can raise those budgets.
Awesome. Anyone on the panel have anything for Sarah?
I would actually also say to Sarah's point,
hey.
What's up? On that specific question, as far as the expectations of the artist from the production side, we had a scenario with Sarah on a tour where we had these big production pieces that necessarily wouldn't fit inside of the venue. They were just too big. Yeah, and we went back to Sarah, and she went back to the promoter and with the venue, and we were trying to figure out how to make it work. And they ended up building those set pieces, like scaled down versions of those set pieces that we needed. They weren't very good, but still the fact that
Chicago.
Yeah.
I got the picture still too. But still, she was able to go back and say, okay, well, look, this is what we have. This is what we're carrying. It won't fit. What can you do so that we don't lose the quality of our show because your venue just can't fit it?
Yeah, that's another really good point. It brings up, like, Sarah, how do you guys deal with, like, I guess it's probably comes more from the manager, but let's say a tour just blows out. Like, do you guys recommend them just selling it out or upgrading venues? Or you could even say that on the flip side where it's not selling that well, do you guys ever degrade venues, or does that look too bad in the PR world?
So, very good question. Well, relative to Justin's point, the production is usually discussed before the tours, and hopefully the production manager's thinking like, okay, these are the set venues that we're going into. I have had tours blow out in a second, and there have been two different discussions. One is, do we want to just leave it as is, build demand, leave people at the door so that there's even more excitement around the show for the people who couldn't get in? And, usually we'll already have plans for the next tour in place when that happens, or not, we'll just start discussing what's next. So I think it's a good strategy when things sell out not to upgrade, because you're leaving fans at the door, you're garnering a lot of excitement, there's a lot of PR. But sometimes the sellouts do warrant an upgrade in venues in specific cities, and we will go about doing that. And we make sure that it's a communication, on all parties, that we don't go into something too big so the production looks that you're carrying across the rest of the tour looks, janky, for lack of a better word, in that big of a room. It's just not as impressive.
Yeah.
And then scaling down is something we try to avoid, but there are tours that sometimes don't sell as well, and that is definitely not a hasty decision. It's a conversation that we'll have with manager, with the tour manager, and sometimes we will scale down for sure.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we appreciate all your insight and knowledge, and we all look forward to working with you again when we do, which is hopefully not in the fall of 2021.
Yeah. I'm an optimist, so yeah. I'm hoping for way sooner.
Yeah, let's all hope for that. Awesome. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Later. Cool. That was our special guest. Appreciate all of them. Cotton, we haven't heard from you yet, but we're going to give you the floor and let you bring it home for us here. So Cotton's going to go over with you guys managing a tour crew. So kind of putting out some fires and stuff like that.
Buckle up.
All right, can you see the screen?
Oh, we see it.
We got you.
Cool. All right, so I'm not gonna talk too much. It's already kind of late. So yeah, managing your crew. This is coming from the insight of more so being a production manager. I'm going to speak on a couple of TM things, but my perspective is as a PM because that's primarily what I do. Balance is one of the most important things of managing your crew. As a TM, obviously your artist is the main priority. That's who pays you. That's the boss. That's who makes the calls. That is your main priority. But a lot of times, I see a lot of TMs focus too much on the artist and forget about the crew. So when I speak about balance, I'm speaking about not focusing too much on one person, even though that's the boss, so that you don't leave your crew out. You know, you kind of want to make sure everyone involved is happy, taken care of, things like that. Balance can also include favoritism. Obviously, a crew is made up of a bunch of different people, and just to be honest, you're going to like certain people more than other people. It's a fact. You're going to cling to certain personalities that match yours, and you're going to not cling to people that just don't match your vibe. But because you're in a leadership position, you have to be mindful not to show favoritism. As far as if person A, that's your homie that you hang out on off days with, misses bus call, he deserves the same punishment as somebody who you just don't get along with if he misses the bus call. Somebody say something?
No, I just said great point.
Oh. So making sure that things are equal among your crew. Like it's just like, if you have, I'm not gonna say that, skip that. But just be mindful of how you're handling yourself and making sure that you're fair to everyone in the crew that's working underneath you. Another thing about balance is appreciation. I've learned as a PM that showing appreciation to your crew really, really helps you as far as, I'm gonna say getting you points as a PM. So like one of the things I've done is multiple times throughout the tour is like take my guys out for dinner off my dime. So like, for example, the last tour I was on, we had a stretch where we did like fucking 13 shows in 14 days. Like one of the roughest schedules I've ever had to do as a PM. And after that, we had an off day. I took the guys out to dinner. It doesn't have to be, a 5-star restaurant. I mean, nobody's rich, but just take them out to a decent spot, Outback or Texas Raw, something where they can just enjoy themselves, get some drinks, and just show that you see them, like you see the hard work that they're putting in. Because again, even though you're the PM, and a lot of times when your crew is doing bad, you take the blame. But when they're doing good, you should show them because they support you. Without a good crew, a PM is literally nothing. So I think showing appreciation is cool, and just team building. Like a lot of times when you're on tour, a new movie might come out, or you might be in, a place that has golf carts or something like, not golf cart, race. What's the thing called? Go-kart. Go-kart. Thank you. Go-kart. Like just planning activity. Like, hey guys, we're gonna be here on Saturday. We should plan this. Let's, everybody might not do it. Some people just like off day to literally have an off day and do nothing. But just present opportunities for your guys to do team building things, which I think is important as far as balance. Although you have a job to do, it's nothing wrong with having fun while you're working and building quality traits and just quality time with the people that you're spending so much time with. Another thing I think is important is about being a PM is you're a person first. A lot of times I think, and I've been a victim of this, not a victim, but I've done this before, is you get so caught up in doing your job that you just forget that you're a person. Like the people that you work with, the people that you manage are people. So like one of the things is a lot of times when you're a PM or you're a TM and you're picking your crew, knowing the difference when you have to make a decision from hiring a skillful person and a person that is hungry for an opportunity. A lot of times, obviously, we all want someone who can do a job and can do it well, but sometimes someone looks to you when you're in a position of leadership or hiring to give them an opportunity. It's just like you guys are sitting here and we're giving you an opportunity to learn, we're giving you an opportunity to work with us. Everyone has been in that same shoe. Everybody is looking for a way out. People are looking for their first gig. So sometimes you have to just be like, I'm willing to take a chance on a person that might not have the same experience as this person, but he has a good attitude. Because I'll take a person that has a good attitude, that will work his ass off and be respectful and grind and improve himself, than a person that is skillful but have a horrible attitude and don't know how to get along with people and things like that. Because if you have skills, you're going to get work. But if you're a newcomer straight out of college, or you just don't have any experience, I might be that, or you might be that person that helps him get into the industry. So a lot of times that's one of the decisions you have to make is picking the right person for the job, and just don't always be set upon picking someone with the most skills. Like, look at the entire picture, because a lot of times, or not a lot of times, you tend to spend more time with this person outside the show more than in the show. As far as the show is only 60 minutes of an entire day. So you're going to spend 23 hours with this person not working, kind of, quote unquote. So just being able to look at the bigger picture when you're picking your crew is important. Another thing important is communication and trust. When you're in a position of leadership, you have to have the trust of your crew, as far as they are trusting you to steer them in the right direction, to lead them and make sure they have all the tools and resources available so they can do their job. Communicate, as far as, obviously some things they don't need to know, but if you know that the local crew at this venue is a little hard, or a little stubborn type, let your stage manager know. Like, communicate to your guys and have a talk with them. You don't want to be the type of TM or the type of PM that your crew feels like they can't talk to, or you come off as an asshole and people can't come to you for advice or suggestions. Like, you don't want to be that type of guy. Like, it's
Those
a
exist.
team.
Those do exist.
It does. It's a lot of PMs that are just complete assholes, that they turn touring into a dictatorship. You don't want that, because it just creates unhappy morale between your people. So being able to listen to your people, because like Justin said, a PM is a jack of all trades. Like, a PM should know a little bit of audio, a little bit of lighting, a little bit of video, a little bit of carpentry. He should know a lot of things, but he might not be a master at all of these things. So sometimes my audio guy might know more in audio, or he should know more in audio than I am. So being able to listen to your crew members and not just block them out and think that you know everything, because you don't. Nobody knows everything. So being able to listen to your team is very important. And just as important as teaching your team. Teaching your team, I think, is important. I have a couple people that's in a webinar that has worked in my crew that wanted to become a PM. And I didn't say, oh, no, you're not going to be a PM. Just stick to doing what you're doing. I invited them to this webinar so they can grow as people. There's nothing wrong with teaching your crew so they can grow with you. Like, you grow as a PM, you grow as a TM. There's nothing wrong with helping that person that's maybe not ready to be a PM, but he wants to. Hey, come in the production office. Let me show you how you do this. Let me show you how to do this, so that he can grow as well. I think being a teacher is also important and happen and helping your crew. And I already spoke about learning. Learning is important, obviously, because you don't know everything. Another thing is, I think is important to set the boundaries within your crew. And this kind of goes back to favoritism, but you want to be a friend at times. A lot of things happen on the road where, like, somebody might have a death in the family, or they might go through a breakup, or it's a lot of things that can happen on the road. Everyday life happens on the road. Like, life at home does not stop because you're touring. So you kind of have to be there for that person, but setting boundaries as far as, hey, I'm here for you for these, 15, 20 minutes while we talk, but I still need you to do your job. Or you don't want to be too nice to a person where they think they can get off on you or they think they can get away with things. That kind of goes back to if I'm too nice to this one person and he's gonna show up at bus call 5 minutes later because he thinks I'm his homie, or he thinks because we're cool or we just had drinks on the day off, he think, oh, Cotton ain't gonna trip because that's my homie. So setting boundaries and again being fair among the entire crew is very important. That goes back to also remaining firm as far as putting your foot down. I had a quick story. Back in December, I had to literally fire one of my friends that I've known for years because he was out of place and out of line at a show. That is one of the hardest things I ever had to done is sit a friend. Like when I say a friend, I mean someone who kids I check up on. Like I know his mom. Like we actually talked, and I had to call him in my room and fire him in Australia. It was one of the hardest things I had to do, but that goes back to remaining firm. As in, I don't care how long we've been together. I don't know how I don't care how long I've known you. Things like that is I have a job, you have a job. And at the end of the day, we can have fun, we can open up, we can hang out, but we still have a job to do. And I felt like that person was taking advantage of me. So I had to set my boundary and remain firm on my decision and fire a friend. Things like that will happen, but that helps the crew know, like, okay, Cotton is serious, or this person is serious because he's not showing favoritism. Anybody would have got fired after the thing that he's done. So I think knowing your boundaries and knowing that line not to cross is very important in managing a crew. And last but not least, is just remember the people that you tour with and the people that you manage with are most likely you spend more time with them than your actual family. So treat them as such. Just always treat them with respect. Be there for them and just remember that these guys look up to you when you're in a leadership role and they want to people want to follow a person that they feel comfortable following. They want to know that you will lead them in the right direction. They know that they can come to you about anything work related, personal related. Just treat your crew as family. Always be respectful. Listen to them, and just have fun. And I think that is just quickly to go over how to manage a crew successfully.
I like that.
I'm done.
That was great. Yeah, I think that's important. That's crazy, but we don't think about it more often like that. Like we're spending way more time with people on the road than any of our families and talk to them so much more. Good shit. That I guess that'll push us into we're almost at the 2-hour mark already, but we wanted to kind of end things with just on a little bit of more of a light note. If anyone has any tour stories, or it could be funny, or it could just showcase a logistical issue that you overcame or anything, we just wanted to take the last little bit here and kind of share some stories with each other, hear from you guys a little bit more. All of us on the panel will kind of share something. And then lastly, if anyone had any last questions about anything tour related, period, like maybe it's something you've been wondering, feel free to ask that. We can get to that after we tell some tour stories. And then we'll wrap up after that. I guess I'll take the first story and then kind of pass it on after that. Trying to think of which ones I should say. I'll use a couple of different ones real quick. So one of them, this is when I got into, so I tour managed and then I got into production as a lighting guy. And I was hired on a tour to do lighting and some special effects stuff with confetti drops. On the tour, this was a small, just single bus and trailer tour. I was setting up confetti at the first show. We didn't really get a good rehearsal, so I didn't really get a chance to kind of dial it in the way I wanted to. This type of confetti blast was off of a power strip that had a little flicker on it, and you're using that flicker almost as an on button. So it's a power strip that's off. You turn it on, and it goes off. It's changeover right before this artist's first show of the tour, sold out show. I set up these confetti cannons, and during changeover, I plugged them in, not knowing that the socket was hot, and all the confetti just goes off right in the middle of changeover, and it's super embarrassing. The artist is freaking out. It's his first time using special effects. And then I got to go run a show lighting wise. It's just a complete nightmare. But now you look back on that and laugh, but it just shows that just fucked up shit happens on tour. And mistakes are definitely made. I never made that mistake twice, so I kept my job. But yeah, I guess another story that happened more recently that's a little easier and funnier. We were in Asia with Bozzy, me, Cotton, and Jordan, and we had a show in the Philippines, a nice little spot. We're sound checking, doing everything. We dial out the whole show in. The artist comes in. Was that like before doors or something, Jordan? And
it was like right before it was not very early. It was kind of late.
Yeah. He comes in. He doesn't really get the whole gist of the show. It ended up selling out, and the vibe is really nice.
Oh, pool in the middle.
It was like a club. It was like a pool there and stuff. Beautiful little spot. He comes in some Nike shorts and like a button-down thing. Like he looked like he was like just like lounging. He didn't really look like an artist at all. I happened to be wearing like pants and a shirt, and I go into the green room, and the show's about to start, and he's like, damn, man, this is actually going to be a dope show. Let me get your pants. And I had to literally take my jeans off, give them to the artist, take his shorts, walk my ass out the front of house and run the show. This man ends up taking my jeans, going out, and he jumps in the middle of the pool with them and fucks them up. It was just so random. I'm not going to, I have another story about our bus getting broke into. Maybe I'll share that at the back end. But it's a little dark. That's a little dark one. Who wants to take the floor here? Cotton, you just went. You want to share something?
Guess I can share about my child. October 11th, 2018. I was in New York at Jimmy Fallon, and the mother of my child was pregnant. Now, we had a deal not for me to work during her pregnancy. A deal I obviously broke because I like to work. Anyway, I was in New York. Everything's going good. We're at sound check, and I get a text that her water broke. So yeah, I'm in New York, and the mother of my child water broke in Detroit. So anyway, I tell Jordan, I gotta get out of here. So he booked me a flight. It's snowing, and first flight gets canceled. So she's at the hospital. She went into labor. I haven't even left New York yet. She's in labor. Anyway, I had to go. I don't remember. I think I had to switch airports or something happened where I think I had to go to a different airport. Yeah, I had to go to New Jersey. So it took even longer. Anyway, I hop on the plane. I didn't have service on the plane. So I had probably like 90 minutes, no cell phone service. I landed. My phone, I had like 50 messages from her and her sister. Where are you at? I lied and said my phone died. And I said, I'm stuck in traffic. So we landed, and of course, when you land too early, what happens? It's not a gate available. So we sit on the tarmac for about 10, 15 minutes. So we're sitting there. She said, where you at? I said, I'm stuck in traffic, coming from downtown. technically, I didn't lie because I was stuck in traffic, just air traffic, and the airport is downtown, so typically not lying, but whatever.
Some sort of traffic.
So I get there, I'm in an Uber, rush hour, it's like 4 o'clock. Took me about an hour to get from the airport to the hospital. She did not have the baby. My daughter was delivered about 8 minutes after I got there. And to this day, she does not know I was in New York.
So we make this
That's my
public.
story.
Oh, and the show went great still.
And the show went great. Everything went good. I was there. I cut the umbilical cord. Everything was good.
I thought you missed the birth until you just said that. I always thought you.
I did not. Nope. I had 8 minutes to spare.
Wow.
Powerful.
I got there at 5:13. She was born at 5:21.
Should have named her after me.
Douglas
No.
just said he's sharing the link, the YouTube link with your girl. So tough, right?
Oh, hopefully she. I hope not.
Maybe this one won't go on YouTube. Cool. That's a great story. Who wants to go next?
Manny Ramirez.
I got one.
Oh, Levi's got one.
Levi.
Badly.
Was it Stitch or Levi?
I mean, I can tell the story if no one else
Levi,
is.
go.
Levi.
I'll share my drive later on. Let's see. I got one that's not like funny, but more of like just a nightmare. We had a show in I believe it was San Francisco or Sacramento. Either way, we had to drive from that show. The next day, we had a flight out to go to South Africa because we had 2 shows back to back 2 days later. So we're driving, got the passenger van and the gear van, and we stop at a guitar center and grab some food and get some gear that we needed. And about 20 minutes later, one of my vocalists comes running back, freaking out, saying someone broke into our car. So go over to the fucking van, and all the windows were smashed, all the backpacks were gone, computers, passports. So that was like, what the hell is, this sucks. We had a show the next day. Ended up being able to expedite everyone's new passports overnight, and flew out the next day, and he made the show. That was
impressive.
a whole lot.
Who'd you call to do that? Was it the Social Security office?
Well, luckily in San Francisco, they had a passport agency that was, they opened up at like 5 a.m. or something. So we were all in line. First people in.
Yeah.
Your boy Justin's the only reason that Chad got a passport to go to South Korea was.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, we had to get 2 passports to go to South Korea, and it was about to close. Wasn't it, Jordan? Or something we had?
The Korean embassy was going to close before you were able to get your new passport because you were waiting in line. We made it to the Korean embassy with 8 minutes to spare.
Yeah, and all because we happened to see the passport line in LA is like fucking, I don't know, 150 people long.
Minimum.
We walk up, and I see a guy that we know, like maybe 15th in line, and just pulled the old, "What's up, man?" Yeah, that was not a good moment, but we made it work. Awesome. Who wants to go next? Manny, you got one?
Yeah, I've got one kind of like with the bus breaking down. I think we were coming from Portland. We're going to San Francisco, but we're stopping in like Redding, California on an off day. So we just finished the show in Portland. It's like 4 a.m. I'm getting ready to do bus call, go to bed, do my bus checks. We're off on the road. I get a call like on the bus phone at like 8 a.m. Yo, bus broke down. The bus driver calls me. I go up to the front, see what's going on. We have a broken axle in the back of the bus, and we are not going anywhere. Luckily, we were able to like stop at the bus fix spot in Wairika, whatever they had, close enough where someone was able to get us out. But anyway, we spent the whole day there thinking that the bus is going to be fixed for the next day to go to San Francisco. So we're like, cool, we're just going to hang out here, get some food, check into the local hotel, just hang out. All right, cool. Next day comes where we're getting ready to go. Bus is not ready. Apparently, the bus company ordered a part to be shipped there and it never got there on time. So now we're scrambling. And this actually involves Cotton too. I get that call from the bus driver. Me and Cotton look up a spot where we can pick up a box truck, kind of get all the gear out, and then have them go to San Francisco, and then we'll meet them in the bus the next day. Well, that didn't happen. Me and Cotton go all that way, go get a box truck, and I think Griffin was on this tour too, our LD. Cotton and Griffin go down the day before, set up that day, I guess. I forgot what we were doing, but anyway, we're waiting for the bus to get fixed. It's not gonna happen. Only way we're gonna make the show is if I go rent a van that I had to run to go get, because there's no Ubers in town, no Lyft in town, anything like that. I had to get a car from the owner of the shop, have me drive it, bring it back, get a van big enough to have everybody go in the van, our openers as well, haul ass to San Francisco. I think Cotton and Griffin were texting me the whole time with live updates saying, hey, we're ready for sound check. We're just gonna check everything. I get there 7:55, doors are at 8. We do a quick line check, open the doors, like nothing happened, right? The next day comes, we got to go to LA. Off day in LA the next day, then the show after that. Me and Cotton go in the box truck to LA now. And I rented that van, and then the same crew that we had, somebody else was going to drive to LA. Me and Cotton get to LA, no problem. We had a great time. Bus drivers in Wairika still getting the bus fixed and is going to meet us in LA for the day of show, or the day before, right at night. The crew that was in the bus and the van in San Francisco stops to get breakfast before they do the long drive, and they get robbed, right? They get robbed, lose all the laptops, everything like that. Me and Cotton are in LA, unable to help, freaking out. I'm texting everybody I can, managers, cops. I'm calling everybody, trying to get situated. That was crazy. So I had to end up renting another van from Enterprise to go pick them up from where they were to go get another van, a new van. They start driving, continue their day, flat tire. Me and Cotton are in LA wondering what the fuck is happening. Then I get a call from the bus driver like, hey, he's gonna be late as well. It's just a shit show. Everything ended up working out. They got to LA, but man, it was a sad, sad day. I felt nothing but bad for them. Man, I saw the bus driver, couldn't wait to see him. It all just came together, but it was a rough 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's touring in a nutshell right there, man. Whatever can happen will happen. Damn.
Yeah.
Crazy. Who's next? Justin, you want to roll? Justin got one?
Yeah. I got a lot. I got a lot of stories because I primarily work with rappers and they just don't like to follow rules. With one artist, I've almost been arrested twice. Another artist, I'm gonna summarize all of these. But I had one particular artist. We were in China, and he was going over. I can't remember where we were exactly, but we were going over curfew, and basically the Chinese police came like rushing the stage. Mind you, this is like my first week. Shut up, Stitch. This is like my first week working with this artist. But Chinese police came rushing the stage, and what I didn't know was they had already cut front of house off. And my front of house guy ended up telling me later, the Chinese police just came running at them, like yelling, "Propaganda, propaganda!" And as soon as they heard that, they knew it was a wrap. They just started hitting buttons, turning stuff off. So that's one scenario. The other one, I actually got banned from the UK. I have to be really specific. Because I don't want to tell you who this is, but basically we were doing a show in a place where my artist didn't, he only likes to fly American Airlines. So we were doing a show in a place that American Airlines didn't fly. So what I was doing was flying us from JFK to London Heathrow. And then we were transferring, I can't remember the other airport. It was a private airfield, but we were we would get in a car service going from London Heathrow to this private airfield. Now my artist loves to be in London, like that's like a second home for him. So he knows he's got the same driver every time he goes. And so I had arranged for us to get some trees at the airport for him to be able to smoke between Heathrow and the private airfield. So he smokes this car out. The problem was his typical driver wasn't working this day until we had an alternate driver. So he smokes this car out, this Viano out on the way to the private airfield. We get there, we board the plane, this private jet, and we go to Poland. We get there, we do the show, and no idea anything is going on. So the next morning, we get up, go back to the airfield in Poland, fly private back to the private airfield in London, and we land, and everything was fine. They said it was going to be the same driver as the day before. Everything was cool. We get off the jet. They start to take us down and they take us inside. And then they start like asking whose bags or whose and all this kind of stuff. And so they start asking if they can search the bags. And I'm like, yeah. And so clearly we're smart. We're not going to take any weed through try to take any through the airport or anything like that. But my artist, not realizing it, had a pair of socks that were in one of his bags. And somebody, he had weed in one of his socks, like rolled up in a sock. We didn't know it was there. He didn't know it was there. It was a pair of dress socks. And so he was like, I don't even know why those are in my bag. His assistant packed his bag, doesn't even know why they're in there. But basically, we were being held at this private airfield by Border Patrol for the UK for bringing contraband into the country. They ended up holding us there for about 4 hours. We ended up missing our connecting flight at Heathrow because we still had to get in the car and go over to Heathrow. And it was really intense because they didn't care. They didn't care who he was. I mean, he's huge. They didn't care about any of that. And they separated us. And he was inside. They had moved me and the couple of people that were traveling with us to another room. And I'm basically trying to tell them like, yo, I'm responsible for that guy while we're gone. So I got to know what's going on. So trying to talk to them and figure out what the options are. They ended up banning us from the UK because, you can travel to the UK as a visitor. You can go, it's pretty easy to go in and out of the UK. Now I have to have a visa. Like I think I did a 5-year visa. This was 2 years ago. I did a 5-year visa, whatever it is, to be able to go to the UK to go back and forth. But they actually banned us, and none of us were able to go back to the UK for like a year or something like that before his attorney was able to get it worked out with these visas and whatnot. So yeah, working with rappers is interesting. The last one I'll tell is super short. Basically, I didn't lose him, but one of my artist's daughters got lost basically at the airport. I see you, Jordan. Basically, I'll tell you after, but basically his sister and his daughter were flying in and out of the tour. It was in summertime, she's out of school. And basically, and this is something to note as a tour manager, just when you're flying, greeters, airport policies, airline policies, if you're under a certain age, you can't fly by yourself. And so we'd set up for his sister and his daughter to fly out of, I think, San Jose back to LA. His sister gets to the airport with his daughter, gets a booty call or something, and decides, well, I'm not going to go to LA because we have a greeter on the other side. So as long as I get my niece on the plane, she'll get there and the greeter will greet her at the gate and everything will be fine. They'll take her to her mom. Well, unfortunately, she put her on the plane and she went and got on the sister went and got on a different flight. Somebody on the little girl sitting in first class, she's 12 or 11 at the time, I think. So she's sitting in first class and someone randomly is like, oh, how are you doing? Oh, what are you doing up here? Who are you traveling with? Oh, you're by yourself? And they tell the flight attendant. The flight attendant relays it to the pilot. So now we have an underage person on the plane who shouldn't be flying by themselves. It's illegal. She lands. They take her into they didn't detain her, but basically they were detaining her. So she's freaking out. She's crying. It's a show day, and I have to convince her dad that I am handling the situation so that he can come and perform. And again, this is really just being a tour manager. He's could potentially lose $70,000 if he doesn't get on the stage and perform. So I'm having to console him and make him feel comfortable with somebody else making sure his daughter gets out of custody at the airport. And I'm not there. I'm in San Jose with him. So very interesting situation. Her mom was there. They wouldn't release her to her mom. It was just a big mess, all because the sister wanted to go to a booty call or something like that. So very interesting situation, but we got her out and she went home that night.
Oh, that's great. Damn.
Crazy.
Wild. Jordan, you want to take the floor? And then we'll have a couple people share their.
Cotton. So I'll just tell a story about Lollapalooza in 2017 or 2018. You remember? I think it was 2018. Yeah, it was 2018. So we were on the Cosmic tour with Bozzy. It was like our first headline tour with him, and it was just a crazy stretch of shows that we had in a row. And so we had basically we had 2 nights in New York for headlining shows, like wild, sold out at Irving Plaza. Right after the last night at Irving Plaza, you know, we load out at like, you know, it's like midnight when we get done. We had today's show the next morning, so the crew's got to be there. I think it's like a 4:30 call or something like that. So our crew's there at 4:30. You know, we're obviously exhausted. So we finished the Today Show, and then after we finish the Today Show, we have like an off day, but we have to go to Canada next, and we also have to go to Lollapalooza a few days later. And the deal was that if we didn't get into Lollapalooza, if our bus didn't park by 8 a.m., I think they weren't going to be able to let us pull up like in the right spot or something, and we weren't going to be able to get a sound check. And basically the sound check was the entire issue, and our artist was very, very, very demanding. Like, we need to get a sound check no matter what. So we're like, all right, we gotta make it happen. So we had to fly. So Cotton finishes the Today Show, drives a box truck to Montreal, and then flies from Montreal to Chicago on this off day. We fly the rest of the crew, Chad, our stage manager and sound guy from New York, to Chicago to meet Cotton there. They spend the entire night programming until like 5, 6 in the morning, immediately leave the festival, get on a plane to go meet the rest of us in Montreal. We knock out this festival in Montreal, bust it over to Toronto. And then we have to go to Toronto, but we have to get out of there in time to get to cross the border so we can make it to Chicago. But one of our guys had lost his passport before we went to Canada. So we're down our stagehand, which is obviously a huge problem, and we're trying to get a quick loadout. So we're negotiating more hands. Our stage manager's stressed. We're all kind of like, all right, this is the big test to see if we can make it in time. So we finished the show, and it was all hands on deck. Everyone's busting it out. We got extra hands, and we worked really hard, and we got through. And I remember we crossed the border on the bus, and then we're like, all right, well, let's go to sleep. When we wake up, we're gonna find out if we got there in time or not. And sure enough, we did. We got there in time. We got to Cotton's out there getting everything ready on the stage. We got a sound check in. And it was probably like one of the most memorable shows I think we've ever done. Just like first show with like pyro. We had like a 7:45 p.m. set on a huge stage.
I'll share my screen. I just pulled up some pictures of it. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
It was really, really fulfilling experience to go from like those few days and all the stress to finally seeing it all come to fruition. Our stage manager had to do that changeover with the star. That star was 15 feet tall and extremely heavy. And him and Cotton worked with the stagehands and everything, got everything changed over in time. It was really impressive, and overall just team effort. And it's one of those times Cotton talks about rewarding your crew. Definitely an opportunity. You know, we did that. I mean, Bozzy himself was very appreciative of everybody, and let everyone know what it meant to him to be able to do that. So it's really his first big festival performance.
We almost lit him on fire.
Oh yeah, we almost lit him on fire that night because he got too close. He went over the red line for the pyro, and his audio engineer, his producer, was doing the pyro, and no one called a red stage, and he hit it when he wasn't supposed to, and it just right up next to his arm, and he was pretty terrified. So watch out for the red line.
Yeah, watch out for the red lines. Cool. Anyone in the has everyone in the panel talked on that? I think all of us just gave a story right there. Stitch, did you have something? Anyone in the audience, feel free.
Yeah, something. It's actually my very first call with you guys. I feel like you guys don't even know the story. Well, actually, the way it came across from on my end. But pretty much when long story short, I spoke with Chad. Well, first spoke with Jordan. Me and Jordan had a conversation. Levine, he liked me, pretty much referred me over to Chad. Me and Chad had a talk, production talk, background talk. Pretty much he liked me. We liked each other. We had a vibe. And I would say about 10 days later, I noticed that an artist that he was on, the company was doing, Pink Sweats, was going to be in Orlando, where I contact Chad, like, hey, I want to, link up with the tour manager, link up with the team and stuff. He's like, cool, I could arrange that. I would say about 2 days later, he calls me and and explain to me, like, the driver dropped out, I need you to possibly fill in, you can help with production as well, but mainly it'll be a driver. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'm with it. Like, my first tour, I'm with this. So he's like, yeah, they're in Phoenix right now, what have you. I'm gonna link you over tour manager. They're in Phoenix. You gotta pretty much, in layman's terms, drive from Phoenix to Orlando. So I'm like, oh, like, that's a nice drive. But I'm thinking, like, all right, cool. I can take this time to, get to learn the crew, get to learn the team, what have you, things like that. So I meet the tour manager, Jordan Edwards, great dude. And I'm actually on my connecting flight. So I finally get to talk to him. I'm like, yeah, like, I'm excited to link up with you guys. It's going to be a nice little drive to Orlando. We all going to be together. He's like, yeah, well, we're not. Like, well, I mean, we're it's like, we're flying, like, you gonna be driving. So I'm like, dude, so like, I'm making this drive by myself. So I'm like, shit, it's like Friday. So I still, cause this last minute, and prior engagement to DJ on that Sunday. So I'm thinking that I was gonna already be in Orlando by that time. So I'm like, kind of freaking out my head, still gotta do two things at one. And then so I do something hey Jordan, I do something very, very illegal.
Yo, what's
don't
up?
tell nobody.
What's up,
I just I straight shot it. So I drive pretty much from Phoenix to Orlando, only stop for gas to stretch my legs. Pretty much took about 5 to 7 5-hour energy drinks during that time frame, and we wired on caffeine and
dude.
Yeah, just try to show them, like, yo, like, like, I'm all in for this, I can do it. And they, that's pretty much was the start of me working with Wasted. They like, this kid is a fucking beast. He's pretty weird. Let's keep him on board. So that was a funny story.
Love that story. Yeah, man, that's, like we said, part of it is just grinding and fucking making it work. That's touring. It's so wild. And I think Stitch was going to be out with Russ. I mean, that tour is going to happen in the spring, but it's crazy. You go from that riding by yourself, and now you're going to be stage managing on a fucking, huge arena amphitheater run. So the progression is real.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I guess what's up, guys? I guess the one thing that I'll add to that story is it was just Stitch, because we decided to go the Airbnb route for this tour with Pink and a bunch of others, but Stitch gets to the house in Florida and he parks the Sprinter. Mind you, he was driving a Sprinter in a 6x12 U-Haul, just hauling ass. So he busts through the door and he's just got this look like he's like quivering and cold sweating because of all the caffeine, and I feel like he slept like maybe 2 hours in the span of like 48. And he busts in the door like, Stitch, you all right? He's like, yeah, dude, I'm here. I madmaned it. And I kind of bowled through this drive, and I was like, this is gonna be a good run. And then, unfortunately, on that tour, we kind of had 2 cycles of assistance. So yeah, it just kind of that story, I think,
goes along the line of just being malleable and willing to adapt and just kind of take things in stride and on a day-by-day basis is super important.
Man, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Stitch. Anyone else want to chime in with anything while we're at it? Got another maybe 2 or 3 stories worth, and then we can wrap this thing up.
I'll do one if you want. I have a short one.
Go for it, Nolan.
Hey guys.
Grandson.
Yeah. So we had a fall tour this last year. We played. I mean, obviously, a lot of you probably know that Florida shows or just Florida in general can be kind of whack sometimes. But we had a sold out show at this like super dirty old rock club called the Orpheum. Well, it's in Orpheum Theater. That's in Tampa. And we were having a big problem with the advance. The promoter like wasn't used to this much production that we're bringing, so they didn't have enough power because it's so old. And Matt down there was on the tour with me running lights and visuals and stuff. And we were going through trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do for power. We needed a Jenny, talk to our production company and stuff that was helping, and everyone was on the same page that we needed a generator. And the promoter was just like fighting us. And then the agent ended up getting involved and being like, okay, if the show sells out, we'll pay for it. Yeah, all that shit. But there was like many days of back and forth. But so then once we got the generator, once we got there was all sorts of problems that day. It was just like the people were nice, but it was bad. So when they finally ran the generator, they put the feeder cable, particularly where like the connections went, directly under a leaking ice machine to start. And so there was like so much power running through, and it was like the most Florida shit you'd ever seen. And then Matt there were people, because it's so old, there were people like crowding in front of house.
Oh, I love this part.
And the security there was a whole thing. So I went and told them that we basically needed more stanchions or some sort of like bike rack or something to get it, so that, because people like mosh a lot at the shows. So there was people.
They were moshing into my console. They thought I was like a part of the show.
Yeah, it's bad. So I was talking to people, and I was handling a bunch of other shit too. And this is while the show was going on. So somebody we told them that we needed stanchions, and they ended up, I shit you not, bringing a singular traffic cone to put somewhere on the floor to like hide people. And then I got like, that was the whole thing. So then I ended up having a security person who was stationed somewhere else, like come stand there the whole rest of the night. So that like kind of helped. And then the one other thing that happened that day, well, a lot of other things happened that day, but I was running the meet and greet. I was helping with meet and greet and stuff during this time. And myself and the photographer would kind of co-team it. And we were playing an unreleased song that we wouldn't let people like film, obviously. So there's one person who was like trying to film it. So I had to just go respectfully be like, hey, we can't film this. As I'm up there, I get a phone call from one of the tour managers / front of house / does everything for one of the openers on the tour. And he's like, hey, can you send Tommy, who's like our big stage manager, out here? Somebody's like trying to fight me. And I was like, he was in the parking lot. I was like, what the fuck's going on? So Tommy wasn't there. No one was there because everyone was getting food because we finally had a break. So I like tell Henry, our photographer, hey, you have to handle the rest of the meet and greet. I got to go. I kind of like go past the crowd and then run outside. And what was happening was some whole argument that I won't get into ensued, not with me, but with that tour manager. And it was actually the head of security for the venue that was trying to fight and like beat up the tour manager. Like this is like a big head of security guy and like super intense. So anyway, I ended up having to like separate them and talk down the security guard from like quote unquote beating this guy's ass for probably like 15 minutes. And so I stood in the parking lot, like made sure the other guy left and talked to this head of security. He was like talking about how like he doesn't care if the police come, he's gonna like kick this guy's out. And it was over something like so minor. So yeah, I had to tell the head of security like not to beat up somebody in our crew. And then he ended up coming later and apologizing, and like it was a whole thing. But yeah, it was pretty hilarious. It was like almost like an hour to 2 hour ordeal of like handling that. So it was Florida.
Florida will produce some wild shit. It's just how they breed them down there. Yeah.
It's in the water.
Crazy. Cool. If anyone else, any last minute people want to jump in, if not, we'll just.
I got a story.
Yeah, go for it.
So on my very first tour, I'm gonna tell you about the most traumatic day that we had. We were on a bandwagon.
Oof.
And yeah, and we just had a great night in Nashville. It was probably halfway through the tour. I woke up first before most people, and we had stopped on the side of the road. We had blown a tire on the trailer, so bandwagon trailer, and then so our driver and I took care of it. We couldn't get the spare on it just wouldn't work with the way the tire on the trailer was. So we just drove without the tire to a shop. I mean, the trailer had like 6 wheels on it. It worked out. And then we're at the shop, got it all taken care of. That was about when everyone else was waking up, and I felt accomplished being able to be like, all right, TM dealt with my first like flat tire, all good. But then we get pulled over again a few hours later by a cop, and we're in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, like 2 hours outside Nashville, and we're all kind of waking up still and don't really think to like hide the weed, but at least it was all in one place. And so the cop was like, I'm gonna search. It smells like weed. Like it I don't think it did, but maybe someone who wasn't in there, maybe. But he made us all get out and ransacked our bandwagon. Like pillows were in the shower, and like my laptop and computer was like thrown on the ground. And it was about an hour of him doing that before we're like, we might be in trouble making it. We still had like 4 hours to go to the next show. And it was already like past noon now. So the longer he was taking, I started trying to contact like rental vehicles, just trying to get the artist there, or just like the minimum. We didn't really have that much production. But then I had to call the agent and be like, can you talk to the promoter? We're dealing with this. And we did end up having to cancel the show. Because it appeared that the police was gonna he started writing tickets. And he wrote all these things like no fire extinguisher, even though we clearly had a fire extinguisher and it was labeled and all this. And then wrote our driver for having a weed cartridge in his compartment. And then even though my artist had given him the weed, just right off the bat, he's like, all right, now I'm gonna arrest you. After like an hour of writing tickets, we didn't think he was gonna get arrested, but he did. And then he gets taken to the jail, and we tried to get an Uber there like immediately, but it took a whole hour because we're in the middle of nowhere. And finally, like an hour and a half later, we got to the jail and had to bail him out. It was like $1,000, and we had enough cash. And then we all got pizza and we didn't drive anymore that night. We just stayed there until it was dark. And it ended up being a wrongful arrest, and they got all the charges dropped. And the officer apologized because it was like probably a quarter of the amount of weed he needed to get arrested in the first place. But anyways, yeah, that's the gist of it. That was a crazy day, and I don't know.
Shit. That was in Nashville?
That was it was Cookeville. Yeah, a couple hours east. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, that's touring, man. That's wild. I guess I got a really quick one before we wrap up, and we'll call it a day. But I forgot about this one. I wasn't actually there, but one of my old roommate was. They had a little Sprinter van and a trailer, a little U-Haul trailer that they kept all the luggage and production for the show in. And they're at the hotel, I think in Madison, Wisconsin, and they had a show in Chicago. So they leave. They put all their luggage in there. They leave. They hit the road, and they get on. I think they get on to the freeway. And the driver notices. He's like, man, this feels a little different or something like that. They pull over. They notice that the U-Haul door had come open and everything fell out of the back of it. every last thing from luggage to backline. They drive all the way back to Madison. They find out where it all came undone in an intersection, and almost everything was gone. So they lost everything thanks to one guy who just didn't just do that and hit the lock. So goes to show you big mistakes can be made off of just little petty shit like that. But that brings us to the end of this. I'm gonna play this might as well play this little graduation song. Appreciate everybody joining us for these 6 weeks that we were on here. This shouldn't be the end of the all of our relationships, though. We got to know a lot of people, and let's all keep in touch. Like Sarah said, we really don't know when touring is going to come back, but it will come back. And when that happens, we're definitely going to be needing to keep adding people onto our team and progressing people along whatever positions they want to be on. And that's about it. So we appreciate you guys. The rest of the panel, you guys want to say anything while this graduation song is just flowing?
First of all, you sound like Obama talking over the.
You like that?
Yeah.
It sounds noble, yeah.
Hey, I was really just gonna say though, after this is over, when you come back, really like dive into Wasted Potential. If you didn't realize it, like we're literally like a family. You know, everything like we're like a family that comes together to do our job, and that makes it a lot of fun. So big ups to Chad and Cotton and Jordan that kind of keep the machine moving, but try to really dig in, because this is, I mean, it's look at it, it's a family. So it's really dope to be part of this family, and hopefully you all will join the team as we go forward.
Sure. Well said. Cool. Anybody else? We're about to jump off. Nice. Right at the 2.5 hour mark. Look at us.
Pros.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Everyone follow each other on social media. I see a bunch of names coming in the chat if you guys want to look at that after this wraps up. Everyone just drop your stuff in there, your ats, and we'll all keep in touch, and we will be back. Appreciate everybody.